we just want to take our viewers to elsewhere in the Eastern Cape. In fact, the president is currently engaging the provincial government there, and the premier in Oscar Mabuyane is speaking. Let's listen in.
Not here because I was working with her yesterday. That some good work that we're doing in making the province a construction site, working with them and Salrand, that presentation can be highlighted here. This presentation, Mr. President, will tell the story of Eastern Cape progress, challenges and aspirations of our people. It will reflect the hard work done in our province by national, provincial and local government in collaboration with our social partners to build the Eastern Cape we want. Our work is anchored in principles of district development model and the provincial development plan. We all know that we are on the last leg of our 2030 vision. The NDP has told us what country do we want by 2030. The PDP does say the same. Honorable President, this is a report of patriots who continue to rise and defy the odds, despite historic injustices and contemporary socio-economic hurdles we have in this province. As the program director indicated, that we are the poorest, the province. Mr. President, the Eastern Cape is now home to 7.2 million citizens. That represents 11.4% of South Africa's total population. Over the past decade, we have seen improvements in the key development indicators as indicated by Stats SA. Life expectancy has increased to 64.3 years for our people. As you know, the majority of our people, because we are a labor-sending province, they go out, go to mines, the majority of them. At 50 to 55, they come back. They don't stay longer. They can't easily get to 60 because of what they are subjected to. In those situations, you will know it better. You led them for some years. You can tell a better story, Mr. President, about what we are doing in mines with our people. But we have worked hard to change that situation. The matric pass rate has reached unprecedented 84.9%. And I can confirm, Mr. President, that the 90% pass rate is loading, having assessed the first quarter assessment. I've seen it, Honorable Minister, in the first quarter assessment, and we saw it last year, and we knew in the first quarter that by end of the year we will be there. So even this year, Mr. President, Mr. President. The rural districts of our province, Mr. President, are producing better education outcomes. Christiani district is the leading district currently from 2024, taking over from Alfred Nzo. The irony is that Alfred Nzo is the most poorest district, but Alfred Nzo is giving us the best mathematics and physical science, because Owar Tambo himself was a mathematician. So I can always, when I look at results and assessing results, see the belt, the Pondo land belt, how it does that work. I must mention that learners from the rural district indeed pass mathematics and physical science outstandingly. That's why we've improved significantly on the quality of results and the quality of mathematics and physical science. One of the best maths teachers in the country is teaching here in Nelson Mandela Bay, the school called Sokaisa High School here in Township, Motherwell. I went in that school, Mr. President, and then these kids said they wanted to change this name, that they wanted to be Sokaisa 100% High School. their name, because when they go for grade 12, they all go out. So the dedication that I've seen is amazing in that school. We're giving our young people wings to have successful and fulfilling careers in fields of study that were a preserve of a few. Earlier this year, we enrolled 25 learners who are mostly from rural areas to study aviation in Port Alfred with an investment of 1.4 million per learner. They should be clapping. No, people are not clapping this meeting. Okay. Or don't clap in cabinet meeting.
No.
Mr. President, we are improving school infrastructure in this province, coming from a very low base. In the last term, the sixth term, we've built 100 new schools, and we are moving ahead with speed in putting more investment of about 7.4 billion that is earmarked to refurbish and build another 138 schools in the next 5 years. That's the term we're in. The health sector has begun transforming with the construction of Nelson Mandela Academic Oncology Unity and a 5 billion investment for clinics and health facilities upgrades in most rural areas. The province is implementing a cerebral palsy centers initiative to address medical legal claims and improve maternal child health outcomes. Part of our biggest challenge, Mr. President, at health is the implementation of effective management systems and lack of consequence, that we are looking at it quite seriously. I know during COVID, we adopted a hub and spoke service delivery model, which has helped us to turn around the situation. So we are looking at that and ensuring that we really reconfigure and re-engineer how the department looks like. We have a bit of challenge with our hospital. It takes time to get proper people who must be the CEOs, especially of our tertiary hospitals. We are attending to that problem, and we believe that what we did with the Department of Education, because, Mr. President, what you saw now is not a fluke. It's coming out of investment that we've done over time, proper plans. Now we are basically getting those dividends from the plans that we've put into education. I say this, Mr. President, that the system here is almost maturing every day in education. The competition is in schools themselves, is in principals. Every principal wants to achieve. Every principal wants to perform. So we want to really replicate that with the Department of Health, where we've got CEOs of hospitals also doing the same, to inculcate this culture that we're bringing. Mr. President, great work has been done in the 30 years of our democracy to create a decent living standard for our people. More than 83% of households now live in formal housing with electricity in the Eastern Cape. We're above 90% in terms of universal coverage on electricity in the province. Talking about a province that have never seen that kind of service. We never thought that electricity will ever be in rural areas. Sibafakela President nabahlala phansi kwamatye nabafuna bazimbila abantu somkhangela phansi somfakela umbali. Bakhona abantu abafuna usuka because izinyanya zabo zilapha kule ndawo. Despite these gains, challenges persist. Our unemployment rate remains stubbornly high, now currently at 36%, coming down from above 40% for some time. Youth unemployment is at an alarming rate of 49%, Mr. President. But I must say, the work we have done in the past term to attract investment has contributed to the reduction of unemployment despite COVID-19 and geopolitical tensions. Had we not had COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine situation, would have been far below the current unemployment rate of 36.6%. Infrastructure backlogs in water, sanitation, rural roads, and healthcare facilities continue to hinder development, especially in largely rural municipalities like Owar Tambo and Alfred Nzo. The increasing burden on social grants, the main source of income for 37% of households, signals persistent structural poverty here in our province. Mr. President, we talk a lot of English and a lot of things. There is a challenge with the water reticulation, but the biggest hurdle we have is source. The irony is that we are a province that is endowed with perennial rivers. We've got more than 6 perennial rivers that are just flowing from either Drakensberg Mountain or mountains down to the Indian Ocean. So the investment in that space of building dams, it is there. I can assure you, Mr. President, work is being done. In areas like Kocha, in Amatole, I went there. We've built 2 dams adjacent to each other in the same area. Those 2 dams worth just above $1 billion. Now we are on phases of reticulating water to our people, as we are doing with Ludega Dam in Alfred Nzo, etc. But the challenge of water is a really biggest issue. Abantu bakuthi, we removed them from drinking water from rivers. We grew up drinking water. We never knew that water in the river has got a problem, Mr. President. So we grew up drinking water as a normal thing. So we've got to speed up that part of intervention. But with Minister, we are getting there. You know, Mr. President, I would be called nationally sometimes in national meetings that I'm Mr. Mzimvubu before I speak. And before I open the mouth, Mzimvubu, my Mabuyane would know he was there at some point as a minister. I just couldn't really understand, really fathom, how does it happen that we take 60 years to implement a project? Project conceptualized in 1960, we're only implementing it now. Similarly, on number of road infrastructure, big road infrastructure network that we will be talking about later, your N2 highway. The road should have been implemented in 2003, took 20 years for it to be implemented. So these are kind of things that we just needed to find a better way of improving our turnaround time and a very agile approach on issues. And we believe that if indeed, with our process of building a capable, developmental, ethical, and agile state, things like these will be the things of the past. In response to these challenges, Mr. President, we've adopted a multi-sectoral integrated approach rooted in the principles of inclusivity, sustainability, and partnership. Our 5 economic growth frontiers, which are manufacturing, agriculture, oceans economy, tourism, and digital economy, are at the core of economic recovery strategy. We've expanded industrial development in the Kocha and East London SEZs, with both zones securing multi-billion rand investment from energy and automotive sector. As President, you were seeing it yourself on the visit we had to the TNPA or Transnet or Mocha deepwater port that we have today. I'm not sure if Minister Godongwana was not an MEC who would have been having that deepwater port. The fight that was there from greenies and environmentalists, refusing literally to have what we have today. Today in that SEZ you have got more than 56 investors or companies operating in that. That's why, President, we believe that we must have a very genuine and honest conversation with the greenies or environmentalists, particularly in our province, to understand what we mean when we speak about sustainable development. That we talk development that is anchored on the preservation of environment. That's exactly what we mean. So we are a province, Mr. President, that is looking at those issues, seriously driving them and ensuring that we are moving to another level. We have seen, Mr. President, if you talk about energy, if I might just single out energy, I don't see Minister Ramaphosa. We've got some good programs that we're working together to drive some of these initiatives. We've been together in Qatar, we've been together in Japan, following on the green hydrogen project, the multi-billion here, the 100 billion projects to be done here. But also, interesting story, Mr. President, to be told is around the issue of the renewable energies. You have seen those wind turbines as they come out of a ship, and the difficulty is how do you transport them from here to inland, the logistics of that. And when trucks are moving them, it's a difficult one. But they are moved. As we speak, the province has got more than 500 wind turbines with more than 17 wind farms that are really generating power into the national grid. The challenge that is there is the improvement of the transmission capacity. Our SEZ, Mr. President, even during the challenge of the load reduction, were the only SEZ that were suffering. When you talk about load shedding, they were load shedded, the only SEZ in the whole country, because of lack of energy. We get our energy from Mpumalanga, and I think it's an issue that should have been addressed a long time ago. It's more than 1,000+ kilometers to get here. I think the issue now of the renewable energy is coming in strongly. It just needs government to come in and intervene on the transmission capacity to get this done. 10 years ago, and many years ago, no one knew that today in South Africa we'll be talking about turbine scales. But I can tell you, Mr. President, that we are now home to turbine scales. Many of those skills are now poached by other countries like Australia. They are leaving those technicians to other countries that are offering them better because of wind farms that are being rolled out in this province. To date, more than 36 billion has been invested in this province on those wind farms and wind turbines. The other one, the recent one that I went to launch together with Sasol, is called Msenge. They are currently doing another one as well in Mpofu. And I told them that people of Eastern Cape have been following everything to up north or east or west. So the electrons that are being generated out of that is in Bedford or Nyaga, cannot make our people to still continue following them up to Sasol. And the point I was making was that before Sasol invested in Sasolburg, there was no town called Sasolburg. Before Sasol went to Secunda, Sasol 2, there was nothing called Sasol 2. So those bold, decisive interventions have turned around. And I said, we would want to see those electrons being processed here. And we would appreciate that, that kind of work to be done in a manner that it's developmental, working closely as spheres of government. To grow our economy inclusively, we seek a support for the expansion of zones into towns such as Mthatha. We are currently working on a Wild Coast SEZ, which has been granted a permit of being an industrial park with intentions of making it a full SEZ. What I know is already we had more than 2 billion off-takers that are keen to invest into that SEZ, which is the third SEZ that we have. We would want to extend the East London SEZ to accommodate areas like Berlin, to make sure that the land that is available and a lot of factories that we are reviving there are also be able to be accommodated. As President, you spoke about Dimbaza yourself yesterday, Fort Jackson and all that. We would want to have SEZ also being expanded to accommodate Kariega, because this is where you have got also an auto sector that is currently manufacturing cars add. I know the work of including the Aspen here is advancing relatively well. So we've got to look at that issue on also how do we decentralize the growth. Mr. President, the automotive sector is still the pillar of our provincial economy. And we host more OEMs than any other province in the country. We are worried about the issue of tariffs that the USA is imposing on our country. However, we are ready to host BYD and other car manufacturers who want to locate their operations here in South Africa. We were together in China visiting BYD factory. I can't forget, Mr. President, what we were told there, that that company has an employee of about 180,000 employees. 100,000 of those are for R&D. It was quite interesting to learn that part. This issue of tariffs, Mr. President, is really going to be a serious pinch from where we are seated. I know this morning I had a worrying message from the CEO of Mercedes-Benz for a meeting that he would want to have, and couldn't hide it, that the issue is about tariffs and how do we look at it from that point. So clearly it's an issue that collectively as a country we must begin to think hard, as we are doing the same with regard to health, with the withdrawal of the support that we've been having from PEFA and others. We are punching, Mr. President, above our weight, as I've said, on the transition to new energy vehicles. In 2024 alone, we secured an investment worth 11.4 billion from the private investor who committed to establish 29 new off-grid electric vehicles charging stations in the next 5 years. The provincial government funded 13 stations. All of them are operational in areas such as East London, Gqeberha, Komani, Libode, Port St. John's and Tsitsikam. If you have got an EV, even if you are in rural areas, you can have a charging station. So we made those targets. When I spoke to Minister of Finance the other time, sometimes he avoids my calls because he says, I'm too much, Mr. President. So, but when I spoke to him, he said to me, but you are ahead of the curve. And I said exactly the point, because if this one collapses in the Eastern Cape, there will be no Eastern Cape. So we've got to get our house in order around this issue. Agriculture as a growth frontier has also seen significant expansion, growing from 27 billion to 38 billion between 2017 and 2022. Strategic partnerships are driving the commercialization of smallholder farming, revitalization of irrigation schemes, and the promotion of high-value commodities like cannabis and wool. I thought Minister Leistesen will be here because we've been talking and he's been promising that he would want to work with us to make Eastern Cape a food basket. So I've been looking for him, but I can't see John now.
He's apologized.
Yeah, he has apologized.
He's busy.
Okay, the ship is not sinking. The province spends 12 billion annually importing food from other provinces. This is a rand flight we can stop with better infrastructure, aggregation support, and market access. We call upon Department of Agriculture, Land Reform, and Rural Development for increased funding in agri-hubs and irrigation infrastructure to unlock our 3.1 billion irrigation scheme revitalization plan, supported by Infrastructure South Africa and the World Bank. I spoke to the Minister of Land Affairs yesterday at about 12 midnight. And he responded to my text at 12 midnight, Mr. President.
They work.
They work. So what I know now is that as a province, to date, our people have been given more than 8 billion on land claims. Former Minister Ngwindi used to say this, Mr. President, that what has been worrying him is that every time there is this issue of land restitution and land redistribution, people are looking for money than land, which is worrying if you talk development. And people are getting that money, and you can see when that money has arrived, the life of people changes, homes and all that, but it's a sort of a short term. It's not really sustainable. In tourism, because the Minister of Tourism is here, the province welcomed 297,000 international visitors in 2023 and has grown its domestic tourism market to 6.8 million visitors annually. The roads we are building are critical for access to our tourist sites. The same applies to the issues of air transport. AXA, Mr. President, has told me that they are investing 213 million in the next 3 years to improve the runway of King Palo Airport in East London. They will also be investing 4.6 billion at the Davy Stillman International Airport here in Gqeberha for runway rehabilitation. We need direct international flights to the Eastern Cape to boost our international tourism numbers. Again, when we were in China, we were reminded by Chinese that, Mr. President, if you want to be rich, build roads, full stop. We need to work hard in improving the road network to increase or to enable the economic growth of this province. We continue, Mr. President, with our endeavors to operationalize the Bisho Airport for international cargo transportation. We're continuing with our discussion with the potential investors from UAE. Mr. President would want to still help us and invest and improve that, and we believe that airport can be very strategic. We did a very good experiment of allowing good Boeings to land there to see that that airport is a potential for that. Infrastructure is the backbone of economic revitalization. Only 9% of provincial roads are surfaced, and while 70% are in poor, deplorable condition. These roads connect farmers to markets, patients to clinics, and children to schools. We are working with Sanral on the 50 billion road infrastructure program rollout that I spoke about earlier, which I think it will be detailed in the presentation. Mr. President, we want to lift out issues of water infrastructure. As I've indicated, that we are hard at work on this, and the minister is continuing, taking from the former minister left off. The declining blue and green drop scores are alarming and indicate a looming health crisis. We propose a targeted infrastructure recovery program to co-finance the failing wastewater and water systems. Our view, Mr. President, is that we need to increase funding for water reticulation projects, maintenance, and protection of water infrastructure against saboteurs. 11 significant projects are underway in our province, including the Peterson and Mthatha bulk water schemes, but fiscal ceiling constraints their pace of development. With 800 kilometers coastline, Mr. President, and 3 ports, the Eastern Cape is positioned to be the South Africa's oceans economic capital. Areas of focus include maritime manufacturing, aquaculture, coastal tourism, a small harbour development. As you would know, that there is a plan from agriculture to develop a small harbour in Port St. John's, in the Ngoshwa municipality, Hamburg, and Mbizana as well. So we want to see those, as we believe that it will also be able to help our fishing industry to grow a little bit. We are in constant discussion with Transnet to make sure that what has been lacking is being attended to and addressed. I think, Mr. President, you were exposed to this. We had a lengthy discussion yesterday around this issue. Also on what we said, that the Algoa Bay is said to be a haven for shipping. This is where you have got, it's a scientific issue, stability on waters. That's why they hang around here, but they don't know what to do when they hang around. So we've got to find something to do for them. I think the issues of manganese terminal we've addressed, we've spoken to those. These, President, are catalytic projects that we believe, if they are implemented, will catalyze the economic development of this province and change the socio-economic outlook of our people. And we would want to see that happening. I would want to go into specifics on that, but there's work to be done. As I said, Mr. President, yesterday morning, before you arrived, I had a meeting of two SOEs, Transnet with the entire group of subsidiaries, as well as the South African National Petroleum Company, the new company that is made up of your Strategic Fuel Fund, iGas, and the Petro SA. The observation, ministers, that I had was that it doesn't look like we are looking closely on the issue of silo mentality. When you have CEOs or chairperson of boards saying, we've been looking for this meeting for years, thanks, Premier, that you could easily facilitate this meeting, that we are all here under one roof. It's a similar experience, Mr. President, that we had about a number of other projects, whether you talk about your the railway line, the South Corridor rail system that connects the Eastern Cape, particularly Gqeberha to Johannesburg. Minister Pravin Gordhan, may his soul rest in peace, will remember one of the very tough meetings I once organized, and with the Minister of Finance. He had to come in, he was not in the meeting, towing and froing on something that we thought should have been done long time ago as government that is in a country that is said to be a developing country. Transnet, Mr. President, is looking at this number of catalytic projects. And unfortunately, the problem we have been having is procrastination around that. And we have all agreed now that indeed procrastination is a thief of time. We can no longer procrastinate around these issues. The Guha LNG import terminal, Guha manganese export terminal, Guha liquid bulk terminal, 100 liquid bulk berth, upgrade on this South core rail system that I've spoken about, and PE waterfront development and East London waterfront. Already there's work done in East London waterfront project, as you have seen in the presentation made by Transnet yesterday. But we need those tanks to be moved, and they're becoming a health hazard, environmental hazard now. They should have been relocated long time ago. Their lifespan has ended where they are, so that it opens up that space for waterfront. You have seen the artistic impression of what kind of a waterfront that is there, and the business has been knocking on us in saying they are ready to get that one going. So, Mr. President, I won't go back on a number of issues that I spoke about and which I said we are dealing with. I know sometimes these issues are putting you between a hard place and a rock as a president. Issues of Transnet taking a decision to relocate headquarters of one of their subsidiaries, TNPA. When that decision is done, it is not fully implemented. You can't have headquarters with executives that are not staying here, that are staying somewhere, but head office is here. A beautiful SS Mendy building that you saw yourself yesterday. So we've got to get it functioning, and we thought that is a good decision to rationalize the over-concentration of Transnet investment into few provinces. So, Mr. President, as I've said, a lot will be coming from the presentation that we've prepared, but I thought it's important to highlight a few issues, even on governance, Mr. President. Let me not get involved there. I think a lot is coming, but we're dealing with challenges, teething problems. The reason that we requested that we extend invitation to executive mayors, Mr. President, is a challenge that we are confronting every day on how municipalities are functioning. When we were doing our annual report, policy species, when we're doing annual report and policy speeches, we're also adopting the standard operating procedures on how now we intend putting municipalities under microscopic view. So we are doing our level best, Mr. President, to see that going through. In conclusion, as I am all welcoming you, Mr. President, the Eastern Cape is a province with boundless potential and opportunities. We stand at a crossroad of opportunity and historical redress. With the support of your office and the National Cabinet, we can unlock our province's growth frontier, create sustainable job and end intergenerational poverty. We submit the report that will be presented by Director General not only as a ledger of accountability, but also as a shared call to build, to lead, and serve our people with greater resolve. Let us build a new chapter of South Africa, South Africa's development story from the Eastern Cape. The time for Eastern Cape to thrive is now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Premier. The Honorable Premier, in his welcoming remarks, outlined the story of progress, challenges, and big dreams. The President brought along ministers and deputy ministers so that they can respond, especially on issues of challenges, and also accompany Eastern Cape on its big dreams. I do want to record the apology of the Minister Ramaphosa, who has confirmed to be present today, but due to ill health could not, as well as Deputy Minister Whitfield, who had confirmed to be here today, also due to ill health could not. And thank you, Minister Chikunga, your late arrival was recorded, and indeed you have arrived. Honorable President, I want to move to the item where the President will make the opening remarks in order to set the tone for the discussions for today. This is the opportunity for you, Honorable President, to give the direction of this visit.
Thank you, Minister Hlabisa, Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. I'd like to also extend my greetings to the Premier, who for 1 minute thought he was presenting opening remarks, but then went on to deliver what he might have thought is the state of the province. I'd like to thank him because he was quite expansive and in many ways also dealt with the other item on the agenda from which he will be removed because he has already gone far ahead of himself. But I'd like to thank ministers and deputy ministers for being here, and MECs, executive mayors and members of councils, and our officials, both at national and provincial level, and also thank all others who are here, including members of the Fourth Estate. Allow me to begin by thanking you all for being here. This is the 5th iteration of the formal engagement between the National Executive which is members of cabinet and deputy ministers, that it's having with the provincial executive. And it's properly dubbed there in saying national cabinet. It says oversight. I think it should say engagement. Since November last year, we have had engagements with provinces like Limpopo, KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, and Gauteng. We hope to conclude all our other provinces, which will be in the first round of visits to all our provinces in the next few months. This is part of our commitment as the Government of National Unity to engage with our provinces on a more regular and structured basis. The purpose of these engagements is to open up a new frontier of intergovernmental cooperation. We cooperate at a number of levels with our provinces, and this is another frontier which we are finding to be quite impactful. And we hope that through these engagements we will be able to complement the work that we do through the Presidential Coordinating Council, which brings together the national, provincial, and local governments to discuss common programs, challenges, and various tasks. And we want to strengthen what I would call the ecosystem of collaboration, and the proof of these engagements is being continuously displayed as premiers report back that following these intergovernmental engagements, we are able, or they are able, to see the interventions that we will have spoken about at this level being embarked upon. A case in point this week or yesterday was when the Premier of Limpopo said, "I'd like to see you, Mr. President, so that we can report back on the interventions we spoke about when the National Cabinet or Executive visited our province." The Government of National Unity has defined a set of strategic priorities, as we all know, for the seventh term, or seventh administration rather. These are to ensure that we drive inclusive growth and create jobs, and that we tackle poverty, and particularly the high costs of living that many of our people are living under, and to build a capable, ethical, and developmental state. Now, we are pleased that the Eastern Cape Provincial Government has aligned its provincial development plan with these priorities. And Premier, during your State of the Province address, not today but in February, you identified a number of growth frontiers, as some of those were repeated in your opening remarks, that will be the focus of the Eastern Cape Province for the coming financial year. Now, these include areas such as agriculture, manufacturing, the oceans economy, the digital economy, as well as tourism. Now, the province has spelled out its plan to deal with the lack of development and the persistent service delivery challenges. We look forward to the presentation that is going to be put forward by the DG of the province, which will outline the priorities in greater detail and provide a clear roadmap for implementation. We should locate our engagement on these issues that we are going to talk about within the broad framework of the district development model. The DDM, as we call it, aims to foster greater coordination as well as integration and efficiency across all spheres of government. It is about breaking down what you earlier referred to, the silo approach or mentality that hinders intergovernmental cooperation, by working smarter, together, and more efficiently. A productive outcome of this engagement would be agreement on concrete as well as credible, tangible plans for implementation under the Provincial Development Plan and the District Development Model. Now, the Eastern Cape, where we are, is one of the most richly endowed provinces in our country in terms of the natural splendor that it has, the arable land, a lengthy coastline, well-located ports, as well as a number of universities. Now, all these endowments should be used to generate economic growth and job creation. Yet the Eastern Cape has significant challenges in realizing its potential. There is here in the Eastern Cape the legacy of apartheid, and you see it wherever you go. The legacy of the Bantustan misrule that we had in our country, balkanization of our country, and the migrant labor system. Now, Deputy Minister Holomisa, a former dictator of one of those Bantustans, on reflecting on the challenges facing the province, wrote to me recently and said, the Eastern Cape, the second largest province in South Africa, and it is quite expansive, by the way, and the Premier was talking about it yesterday when we were interacting with Transnet. It is a huge province, second only to the Northern Cape. But this is the product, as Deputy Minister Holomisa continued to write, of the amalgamation of former homelands of Transkei and Ciskei with some parts of the Cape Province, of the old South Africa, he says. The challenge that has, however, been facing this province, he continues to write, is that its infrastructure had never been properly integrated with that of the old South Africa and brought on par. Nor does the province have the budget to catch up on the backlogs and imbalances of the past, close quotes. This is so eminently correct, even coming from a former dictator. Now, levels of poverty, inequality, and unemployment remain extremely high here in the Eastern Cape. As Minister Hlabisa, in opening this meeting, correctly pointed out, the Eastern Cape is the poorest of all our 9 provinces. And we do count 4 provinces as being so badly affected by the legacy of the past and also suffering from the plight of poverty. There is significant infrastructure backlog here in the Eastern Cape, which affects the provision of water, particularly, and electricity, but it also impacts on other social areas of our people's lives, healthcare, education, as well as transport. This is exacerbated by the growing impact also of climate change, which we also need to talk about. The effects of climate change are felt on a widespread basis in our country, but especially in KZN, the Eastern Cape, and Gauteng also and Northwest continue to suffer that, as does the Western Cape as well on the more eastern side. Now, as a consequence of these challenges, the province's natural and other endowments are not supporting inclusive growth in an equitable manner. despite the progress that we have made, and we have made progress, and the Premier correctly talks about some of the developments, and where we visited yesterday, the port of Ngoga, it is a product of what has happened post-apartheid or during the period of freedom in our country, that we have been able to develop such a significant port, which, as you correctly say, was opposed by a number of other non-governmental organizations, and they were obviously focusing on the environmental degradation, which they feared would ensue, but which has not, but which has also led to a great deal of progress and job creation as well. So we have made progress, but despite the progress that we have made in a number of areas, the province's growth and development is also significantly hampered in a number of ways, some of which have to do with poor governance, mismanagement of public resources, corruption, and this particularly happening at municipal level. Now, the Consolidated General Report of the Auditor General for 2023 and 2024 noted that since the end of the previous provincial administration's term, stable leadership has strengthened oversight, increasing the number of departments with clean audits from 5 to 9. Now, submission of good quality financial statements improved from 62% of the departments at the start of the administration to 76% in 2023 and 2024, due to the proactive support of the provincial treasury. And here, Premier, we must applaud what the provincial government is doing in strengthening governance, and without singling out any department, but the provincial treasury has been doing a good set of work, and we applaud that. But at the same time, the report noted from the Auditor General that the Eastern Cape had the highest number of material irregularities of all provinces. Now, this is a matter that needs to be given attention to. Of the 30 material irregularities identified, there are quite a number, about 13, that remained unresolved, as the Auditor General reported. Not only must we pay attention to how public funds are managed, we also need to pay attention to how these funds are utilized. Now, according to the AG, some of the departments did not achieve their targets in the stated goals. And in this regard, she singles out education as well as the health department. And these are areas that we need to improve, and we must talk about that also in this interaction. So while the Auditor General's report shows that the province is making progress along the path of improved governance and financial management, it also points to areas that need significant improvement, as I said. While there is much that can be learned from these and other statistics, the true measure of progress will be in the manner in which we bring about changes to the lives of ordinary people in the province. That becomes the true test. How our people in the province perceive that as government we are having a positive impact on their lives. Their lived experience should be able to tell us whether we are making progress or not. We must be concerned when we see the collapse of services and the deterioration of infrastructure in our metros, in our cities, and in our towns. And as people knew I was coming through here with members of the executive, there was a headline, a front page report which said, "Mr. President, welcome to a broken city." Now that is concerning, and we need to pay attention to that, much as a great deal of progress is being made. And it is good that this interaction also includes our local government sphere, so that we can have meaningful discussions and support and assist them with whatever help that will be needed at that level. We must be concerned at the sight of a number of our people who are forced to cross raging rivers in drums because there are no bridges, or sick patients lying on the floors of hospitals because there are no beds. And this will become more evident as we have our discussions about the lack of proper infrastructure that improves the lives of our people. You spoke about the roads, but we must also speak about the bridges. We must speak about the lack of proper water facilities and improving those water resources and building the dams. Yes, it has taken quite a lot of time to execute a number of projects, and you speak particularly about the Umzimvubu Dam, which has taken almost 60 years. It was conceptualized during apartheid, and throughout the period we have been talking about it, but fortunately the construction of part of the Umzimvubu Dam project in Ntabelanga Dam has now started, and we are hopeful that we will be able to continue in executing that project to fruition. Sometimes, as they say, it's better late than never, but of course we don't want that lateness to be elongated to a point where people lose hope. Now, the extent of the challenges that we face mean that we need to make critical decisions about resource allocation and spending in a difficult economic climate. Much of what needs to be done here is to improve the infrastructure. As you say, Premier, whereas the Chinese say, if you want to be rich, build roads. Much of the road network that we need to pay attention to here will require a lot of money, and we need to raise a lot of money, particularly in the current fiscal challenging period that we are going through. The Minister of Finance was going to be busy elsewhere, but I insisted that he should come, not only because this is his home province, but because the challenges that we face in providing finance for infrastructure are such that we've got to come up with innovative ways of funding our infrastructure. The fiscal challenges we face mean that the purse at the national level is constrained, and we therefore need to have deep discussions about how we are going to go about having or raising financial resources. And there are quite a number of innovative ways that we can embark upon in working together with National Treasury, together with private investors, together with the province. There are ways in which we can find finance to fund all these challenges that we face. We are called upon to drive inclusive growth and to create jobs. It is concerning that so many young people in our province remain unemployed. And we are called upon to answer the cries of our people for better service as well, for jobs, for decent health care and education, and for protection from crime and gender-based violence, which is quite rife in this province. We've been having to deal with a spate of violence that is perpetrated against women and children and young girls in this province. and we need to pay attention to that much as it is a broader problem nationally. I would like today to be a productive engagement that results in sustainable solutions that will uplift our communities and in the end improve the lives of our people. Yes, as we deal with the impact of what is happening at the geopolitical level, with tariffs that are being imposed on us and which will have an effect on a number of companies that operate here in the Eastern Cape as well and nationally. Those are the challenges that we need to deal with and address. And it is only with a collective effort that we will be able to succeed. And by working together, we can confront and indeed overcome the challenges that are holding us back. COVID-19 held us back, and it tanked the economic growth path that we were on, but we have recovered, and we will continue addressing a number of challenges that we face, and it is only when we have these types of engagements and put our thoughts together that we will be able to have a great province and where we will be able to achieve our true potential. So I am glad that we are all here. Previous engagements we have had with other provinces have been very beneficial, and I look forward to this engagement also being beneficial to this province and to the national cause that we have embarked upon. So thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing what the DG will present. Thank you, Minister Tlhabisa.
All right, so those are live visuals coming to you from Gqeberha, a marathon run, if you like, of the opening address of both the Premier of the Eastern Cape in Oscar Mabuyane and, of course, from President Cyril Ramaphosa, both really echoing each other's sentiments around what the issues are in the Eastern Cape as this fifth iteration of this intergovernmental interaction between cabinet members and those from a provincial government continues. You might remember that we had watched similar meetings from Limpopo, KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, and in Gauteng, and we're now in the Eastern Cape. Big issues emerging there have to do in the main with infrastructure and how, of course, the provincial government there can really leverage off their natural endowments and others in order to lift the large populations of communities out of poverty. In fact, the Premier kicking things off by saying that there are 7.2 million people living in the Eastern Cape. It's around 11% or so of the country's total population. And the President coming thereafter to say that he can already notice just a vast poverty that really permeates through several parts of the province. In fact, he's spoken about a newspaper headline that essentially said something along the lines of, Mr. President, welcome to a broken town. And it will resonate that with many people, both in and out of that province. We have told multiple stories of how there's just widespread deprivation in places like the Eastern Cape, and that's certainly, at least if the opening remarks are anything to go by, top of mind for the President and likely to set the tone for this particular meeting. There's also been conversations around the impact of the US tariffs, especially on manufacturing plants that are located in the Eastern Cape. Oscar Mabuyane is saying he's received a message from the CEO of Mercedes-Benz wanting to meet with him to take stock essentially of how the province more particularly are going to be able to support companies like those to, I suppose, augment the impact of those tariffs. And I imagine issues to do with agriculture as well as the ocean economy will also feature quite greatly. So we'll continue watching that meeting very closely, bring you as much as we can of it as it continues to unfold.